Killer Stephen Avery trying once again to get a new trial through a fresh bid for DNA testing.
Avery's defense attorney filed a motion this week in Manitowoc County Court for new scientific testing on a major piece of evidence in this case. Avery is serving a life sentence for the 2005 rape and murder of professional photographer Teresa Halbach. Brittany Schmidt reviewed that 35-page motion filed in Manitowoc County to find the one piece of evidence the defense hopes can be re-examined.
On March 14th, Stephen Avery's defense attorney, Kathleen Zellner, filed a motion in Manitowoc County seeking permission to conduct advanced touch DNA analysis on Teresa Halbach's Toyota RAV4. The vehicle plays a central role in the decades-old case, having been discovered at the Avery salvage yard outside Mishicot just days after Halbach's disappearance. The 25-year-old was last seen at the Avery property on October 31, 2005, conducting a photo shoot for a car sales magazine. Authorities later found her vehicle on the property, and further investigation led to the discovery of bone fragments in a burn pit on the premises. Zellner has previously suggested and identified an alternative suspect who Action 2 News is not naming because no formal charges have been filed. Zellner argues Halbach's RAV4 is the primary crime scene connected to her murder. Both Halbach and Avery's blood was detected inside the vehicle, but now Zellner wants to test the RAV4 for touch DNA. The National Library of Medicine defines touch DNA as the transfer of DNA from a person to an object via contact. In the defense's document filed, a DNA analyst says, quote, almost anything that has been touched, handled, or brushed up against an individual's skin can produce a DNA profile. Zellner is asking the judge to allow a third-party expert to test several areas in and around Halbach's vehicle, which remains in the custody of the Calumet County Sheriff's Office. Zellner says the testing has the, quote, potential of identifying a third party who may have committed the murder of Miss Halbach, or in the alternative, has the potential to further implicate Mr. Avery in the murder, end quote. Avery's team would pay for the testing, in part thanks to donations by his supporters. This strategy marks another chapter in Avery's long battle for exoneration, as his legal team continues to challenge the evidence presented in 2007 at trial that led to his conviction and life sentence. This case has gained international notoriety in 2015 due to the Netflix docuseries called Making a Murderer. To date, Avery's attorneys have filed 3 motions for post-conviction relief. All have been denied, although the latest decision is currently under appeal. I'm Brittany Schmidt for Action 2 News.